You can be sipping water all day long, eating what looks like a sensible diet, and still find yourself sitting on the toilet for 15 minutes with nothing to show for it. I see this every single week in my practice, and the patients who come to me are almost always shocked when I tell them the answer has very little to do with how much water is in their glass. The answer is usually sitting on a grocery store shelf they walk past without a second glance. There are simple, inexpensive cans already cooked and ready to open that can transform a sluggish bowel into a regular, comfortable one within weeks. There are also 2 canned items that millions of older adults eat thinking they are making a healthy choice, while quietly making their constipation dramatically worse. I'm Dr. Pradeep, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 3 best canned foods to soften stool and restore movement in an older digestive system, then expose the 2 cans you should consider removing from your pantry tonight. Stay with me until the end because the second harmful one surprises almost everyone, and I'll close with a real patient whose life changed in 2 weeks from these exact swaps. If you find yourself nodding along, hit subscribe and let's get started. The first food I want you to bring home is canned chickpeas. I know that may not sound exciting, but I want you to understand what these little tan-colored beans actually do once they reach your gut. As we move past 60, the muscular wave that pushes waste through the intestines begins to lose its enthusiasm. Picture a conveyor belt at an old factory that has not been serviced in a while. The belt still runs, but slower with longer pauses between movements. When the system slows like that, water keeps getting pulled out of the waste sitting inside your colon, and the stool dries into something that feels closer to clay than to anything natural. Chickpeas counter this in 2 complementary ways at once. A single drained cup of canned chickpeas delivers roughly 10 to 12 grams of dietary fiber, but the magic is in the blend. They carry both insoluble fiber, which acts like a soft scaffolding that gives stool actual volume, and soluble fiber, which behaves more like a sponge soaked in warm water, drawing in moisture and turning hard pellets into something smooth and pliable. Imagine trying to push an empty cardboard box down a hallway with a broom. Nothing happens. Now fill that box with damp towels, and suddenly there is enough weight and softness for the broom to do its job. That is the difference chickpeas make inside your colon. The walls of your intestines actually need something to grip and squeeze, and an empty system gives them nothing to work with. There is a second layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Chickpeas are powerful prebiotic food, meaning they feed the helpful bacteria living in the lower part of your digestive tract. Those bacteria, when properly fed, release small compounds that wake up the muscular contractions of your bowel. Think of it as paying the night crew at that old factory to come back in and oil the belt. Studies on legume consumption in older adults have repeatedly shown improved bowel frequency, less straining, and reduced reliance on laxatives. The reason I specifically recommend the canned version is practical. Dried chickpeas require an overnight soak and an hour on the stove. Canned chickpeas open with a pull tab, rinse in 30 seconds, and you are done. For my patients who have arthritis in their hands or simply tire easily by dinner time, this matters. You can warm them in a pan with chopped tomatoes and a handful of spinach for breakfast. You can toss them cold into a bowl with cucumber, lemon, and olive oil for lunch. You can stir them into a simple broth-based soup for dinner. Just remember that fiber without water is like trying to flush a paper towel down a dry pipe, so increase your fluids alongside any fiber increase. Chickpeas handle bulk and microbial fuel beautifully, but they do not pull large amounts of fluid into the bowel itself. For that, we need our second canned item, and that brings us to canned lentils. Lentils carry slightly more fiber per cup than chickpeas, often in the range of 12 to 15 grams, and the composition skews toward fermentable fiber and resistant starch. These are types of carbohydrate that pass through the small intestine without being absorbed, then arrive in the large intestine like a delivery truck, dropping off groceries to that hungry gut bacteria. What I love about lentils for older patients is how gentle they are on a sensitive digestive system. They are already broken down, soft, and easy to chew. Some high-fiber foods feel like swallowing wood chips. Lentils feel almost creamy. For someone with dentures, a swallowing concern, or a stomach that flares up at anything rough, this is significant. The soluble fiber inside them gets to work quickly, forming that gel-like layer that surrounds your stool and keeps it from drying out before it reaches the exit. The fermentable carbohydrates then provide a slower, longer-lasting wake-up call to the bowel itself. Picture a garden hose that has been sitting outside in the cold all winter. The rubber has gone stiff. If you turn the water on suddenly with full pressure, the hose cracks. But if you let warm water trickle through it for a while, the rubber softens, becomes flexible, and finally moves the water through smoothly. That is how lentils work on an older bowel. They do not blast the system, they warm it. Canned lentils slip into meals with no effort at all. Stir them into a morning egg scramble with a pinch of cumin. Spoon them cold over mixed greens with parsley and lemon for lunch. Simmer them with carrots, sweet potato, and low-sodium broth for a dinner stew that will keep your gut working gently overnight. Consistency is what matters here. The bowel responds to pattern, not to one heroic meal. A small portion every day will outperform a giant bowl once a week every single time. But chickpeas and lentils, as wonderful as they are, still do not pull dramatic amounts of water directly into the intestinal channel. For that, we need the third canned food, and this one is the secret weapon I save for the patients who have tried everything else: canned pears. Pears contain two specific compounds that work together in a way few other fruits can match. The first is pectin, a soluble fiber that holds water like a wet sponge inside the digestive tract. The second is sorbitol, a naturally occurring sugar alcohol that has a remarkable ability to draw water from the bloodstream into the bowel itself. This is the missing piece for many older adults. The reason your stool is hard is often not that you're not drinking enough water. It is that the water you drink is being absorbed before it reaches the part of the colon where it is needed most. Sorbitol corrects this by pulling fluid directly into the lower intestine, right where dry, compacted stool tends to get stuck. I want you to imagine a riverbed that has dried out in summer. You can pour buckets of water at the top of the river, but most of it soaks into the dry earth before it reaches the lower bend. Sorbitol works like a small, gentle channel cut directly down to that lower bend, delivering moisture to the exact spot where it is needed. Research on pear consumption in adults dealing with sluggish digestion has shown improvements in stool frequency and softness within about 3 weeks, with patients reporting noticeably less straining. Even though canned pears are processed, the pectin and sorbitol survive the canning process intact. The light syrup or juice they sit in actually adds more hydration to the meal, which is a quiet bonus. A few practical ways to use them. Spoon a small portion over plain oatmeal in the morning with a sprinkle of ground flax. Serve them alongside a green salad with walnuts at lunch. Warm them gently with a little ginger and serve over plain Greek yogurt at night. Just stay reasonable with the portion. Sorbitol is powerful, and too much in one sitting can produce gas or loose stool, so a small daily serving works far better than a large weekly one. Now, I want to turn the conversation in a less comfortable direction because adding good foods only solves half of the problem. There are two canned items most older adults treat as healthy that actively work against everything we just discussed. The first is canned tuna. I know this one is going to sting because canned tuna has a reputation as a clean, lean, sensible protein. The truth is that tuna contains zero dietary fiber, not low fiber, none. When you build lunch after lunch around tuna with crackers or white bread, you are filling your stomach with material that gives the bowel nothing to grip, nothing to push, and nothing to soften. Worse, every meal built around tuna is a meal that crowded out a meal that could have contained vegetables, beans, or whole grains. That displacement effect is what slowly tips an older bowel into chronic constipation. A high-protein, low-fiber diet is one of the fastest ways to slow gut transit because protein takes longer to digest, and without fiber to balance it, waste lingers in the colon long enough to dry into something genuinely painful to pass. I am not telling you to never eat tuna. I am telling you to stop letting it be the daily centerpiece and to never eat it without a substantial fiber-rich partner on the plate. The second offender is canned milk, including evaporated and sweetened condensed varieties. These are concentrated, fiber-free, and quietly woven into countless older adults' daily routines through tea, coffee, cereal, and porridge. The trouble is not just that canned milk lacks fiber. The trouble is the pattern it creates. Cup after cup, day after day, it crowds out fruit, oats, vegetables, and the natural plant foods your bowel actually needs. Add in the fact that some older adults become more sensitive to dairy as they age, and the combination of concentrated dairy with low overall fiber intake creates a slow, sticky tide that pulls digestion in the wrong direction. The fix is balance, not elimination. If canned milk lives in your kitchen, make sure the rest of your day is rich in plants. Otherwise, swap it for something simpler. I want to leave you with a story. A retired bookkeeper, 67 years old, came into my office last spring, barely able to make eye contact. She was so tired. She had been taking over-the-counter laxatives almost daily for nearly 4 years and had stopped traveling, stopped going to her grandson's baseball games, stopped almost everything because her digestion had become unpredictable and humiliating. We looked at her diet together. Tuna sandwiches on white bread for lunch most days. Tea with sweetened condensed milk 3 or 4 cups a day. Almost no plant foods. We removed the daily tuna, swapped the condensed milk for something simpler, and built canned chickpeas, canned lentils, and canned pears into her 3 meals. Within 17 days, she had her first laxative-free week in years. 3 months later, she sent me a postcard from a beach in Florida. She wrote that she had forgotten how good it felt to simply trust her own body again. That is what is possible. None of this requires a prescription. None of it requires cooking from scratch. It requires 3 cans on your shelf, 2 cans you stop relying on, and the patience to let your bowel relearn its rhythm. So tell me in the comments, which of the 3 you're adding to your cart this week? Chickpeas, lentils, or pears? I read every comment. Subscribe so you do not miss the next video, where I will walk you through the high-fiber nuts that work even faster than these. Share this with someone in your life who has been suffering quietly. This is Dr. Pradeep, reminding you that real relief is closer, simpler, and more affordable than anyone has told you.